I'm Fahima Mohammed, and you are watching Open Dialogue here on Ahlebait TV. Thank you so much for joining me from all the different social media platforms. And inshallah, I also want to remind you that you are more than welcome to discuss with my guests and myself any of the topics that we are having each week, and especially tonight, which is something completely different. So if you do have any comments, queries, any questions, please do call in. The number should be at the bottom of your screen. Tonight, I'd like to welcome my guest. We have Sister Uzma Naqvi. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, sister?
Very well, thank you, and especially well because you're here with me today, which I'm really looking forward to sharing all your thoughts. And we also have our amazing scholar, Maulana Syed Razavi. Assalamu alaikum, Syed. How are you tonight?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for hosting.
You're welcome. Well, we do have a different topic for today, and it does actually coincide with what's actually happening around our situation, our circumstances. We are obviously in a current crisis, and it's ever increasing, with a lot of people going through anxiety and obviously going through loneliness, going through a lot of mental well-being issues. And a lot of us think that there's only maybe one or two routes that we can actually take in order to help us, whether it's faith and also when it comes to professional help. Now, when it comes to professional help and assistance or guidance, whatever you want to call it, it's very well known that we can go to certain professions with labels and titles, which we are very familiar with. But unfortunately, in our community especially, we're not necessarily aware of life coaching and what does it entail. And I completely understand that, by the way. And I can understand the questions. I can understand people even not having an idea because it is quite vast and it isn't that much explained under one umbrella like how it would in other professional sort of statuses. So that's why we're going to have the show tonight to see if this is really for you. Can it actually help you? And if so, in which way? I myself am a trained and qualified life coach, and I'm going to try and be impartial. I'm not going to try and sell this. It sells itself. And I'm going to try and play a little bit of devil's advocate. And hopefully, if I don't get any calls, I will hopefully speak for the ones that do have these kind of queries and questions, which are, sometimes alarming to most, or just of interest, or sometimes we just don't have any sort of education about it. So we're not here to judge, we're not here to bash, we're just here to open up a discussion. And like I said, this is a platform for anyone to call in. We have lots of messages, we have emails. You know what? I'm the kind of person that, you can confront, and you can do it live on TV today with my guests with absolutely no issues. And we were going to be really, really respectful, and we're going to try and answer your questions. So please do call in if you do have any queries. I'd like to come to you first, Sister Uzma, before I go on to the Sayed. And it's really important that we discuss this in detail because we are dealing with people's lives. We are dealing with people's issues, and we are trying to transform them. So we're not here to just make these claims because it is out of the cuff. And even if some people are using it, which is the minority, which I certainly haven't come across, but there are people that are trained majority of the time from accredited, training, regulated associations and companies like myself and you. So tell me firstly, give me a little bit of an introduction in a nutshell. Do you think that life coaching is for the masses?
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be sitting amongst these beautiful people and having a conversation, and especially on a topic that's really close to my heart, as you know. So thank you so much for the invitation, first of all. So coaching, wow. I mean, it's such a big and a wonderful topic that we can just talk about for hours and hours on end. But in a nutshell, I would say that coaching is so super important. And I would say not only important for only the people that are going through something, but actually important for everyone. And I will explain that a little bit more as to why it's something that everybody and anybody can use. But to start off the conversation, I would the liner I would use before anything else is that coaching helps you to take action. and who doesn't need to take action? We're all in the process of something. We're all in the process of moving on in life. Nobody just wants to be in the same place as they were last year or even last week. We all want to progress. That's just the innate thing that we have inside of us. It's a human nature thing, right? So if we don't want to stagnate, and if we don't want to just be paused in one place for such a long time, then coaching is 100% the answer to that. So I'll start off with that, and then you can ask me anything else that you think might be of interest, and we can go into that.
Well, thank you. That is really important that we do make that clear, because a lot of us, go and seek assistance when it's at the detrimental stage, whereas coaching, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And it's such a huge, wide aspect. And like you said, we'll go into it a little bit more. Sayed, I want to come to you with regards to especially our community, Muslims, our faith, with us getting assistance and guidance outside family, friends, and even when it comes to seeking professional help. Like, what does our faith say? We do have our sort of beliefs behind us to give us that assistance, but how important, or is it important, for us to seek advice and assistance outside our family and friends, especially when there are professionals out there who could help you with relationships, with your career? And of course, there's a stigma against any kind of assistance or going for those sort of things. But do you think that, we should encourage this kind of guidance, or do you think we should stick to our own families and maybe stick to our own sort of like, groups and Allama when it comes to gaining assistance for our issues and challenges in life?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for inviting me and discussing this subject. From Islamic point of view, seeking advice is very important, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us as a social being. And one of the requirements of being a social being is to help each other. And definitely no one in this world can be master of everything. And we need advice and help and support. And there are verses of Holy Quran, and also there is a lot in hadith and narrations. And in practice also, we see Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and holy imams seeking advice. I mean, imam and a prophet, according to our belief, is the most knowledgeable person. So why they would need to seek advice and assist from others? Because imams were instructed to lead us as a social beings. Therefore, they had to deal and also react to the needs that we need in our society, in our daily reactions as well. So, holy imams, for example, in the middle of battlefield, Prophet Muhammad would not just dictate that this is what you have to do. He would consult his companions, consult his people, the people around him, and ask them, and then whatever was decided unanimously, they would stick to that. And this is again Islamic teaching, that shawirhum fil amr فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. That it's our we are being given advice that we are supposed to seek advice, and once we reach to a conclusion, then trust Allah and go for it. And in other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Islamic teachings are teaching us to have confidence. Without having confidence in ourselves, without we cannot move forward. And the best way to move forward is to have the backing of those who we have consulted. For example, look at Islamic Republic of Iran. they have a whole system of, first of all, leadership. Leaders has advisors, members of experts, assembly, parliament, and on top of that, specialist advisors are there as well to give advice. And because nobody is infallible, the possibility of mistake is always there. Even in aqidah, in faith, in what we do, and even the ijtihad of a great scholar, mujtahid. We cannot claim that mujtahid is infallible and he would not make mistake. But the duty of us as a human being is to try to achieve the highest level of perfection, and that highest level of perfection can be achieved by consulting and then going forward.
Thank you. That really does highlight a lot and how important it is and the responsibility of anyone, even in this kind of career and status. And what I want to add to that is that when it comes to seeking advice, when it comes to life coaching in particular, there is no giving advice. It's really about opening up your perspective and bringing things out of you. So that's something which is very different to most sort of professions out there. And it's not about dealing with the past as much. It may be highlighted for certain situations, but it's moving forward. So that's why it is something different. And I want Sister Uzma to sort of explain a bit more about that. Like we said, we can talk about this for hours, but we only have a limited time. So I want to bring you straight into it. So you carry on with what was your next point with regards to this topic.
Of course. So I think it's so beautifully put by the Sayed. Thank you so much, and especially bringing it, closing it up with saying that, it's about becoming the true version of yourself, the highest potential, and living up to that in the best of your ability. And I think even from the Islamic point of view, and I'm obviously not a scholar, but the whole concept of Jummah and praying together is that, coming together, and actually if anybody has any issues, then you're able to have that platform where you're able to speak to each other. So coaching definitely goes hand in hand with Islam. It's not something that's contrary to what we believe. A life coach is someone who is trained to help you see very, very clearly where you are today, and then find you ways to move forward with your goals, and it's almost like having a really, really good friend by your side, and help you, somebody that you can trust, somebody who doesn't hold the emotional baggage in terms of what you're going through, and isn't attached to you in that same way, that is going to get tangled into that emotional turmoil with you, but to help you see everyday problems. And I know that's how you put it. It's for everyday people with everyday problems, and helping them see a way forward, understand like different options you help you to see that the potential you actually have, and then create a very tangible plan, something that you can take an immediate action with to move forward towards a solution with whatever problem it is that you're facing. So helping you identify obstacles, setting goals, changing your perspective, and having the ability to identify and change some of the core beliefs. And we all know that some of the beliefs that we carry are not necessarily true. A lot of them are actually hindering us and taking us away. So coaching, as I mentioned when I first spoke, is all about, it's very, very action oriented, with a focus on the client, on the client's life, with in mind that you're going to help them build a future, help them plan to build a future. It's about assisting the client and clarifying his or her present values, because that's really important. Everything sits on the values, right? And your beliefs and your intentions and the needs that you have and the abilities that you currently have and the strategies that you can build and the goals that and overall the purpose that you have within this world, because none of us have been brought here just to come and spend some time here and then off we go to the next realm. It's all about perfecting our characters and being the best versions of ourselves. And if somebody is there to hold your hand through that process and ask you empowering questions and to help you decide, because at no point does the coach decide for the person what's the best course of action. The client is always in that position to say, actually, that makes so much more sense, because they know everything else about their life. So they're always going to be in charge of their own destination. It's just about being asked to find the solution, but from within themselves. And I think that's a really critical point that we all need to understand, that it's, it's not there to dictate. It's not there to tell you you must do this and you must do that and this is how you need to take actions, but actually just get you in the process of coming into that empowerment, that feeling. And it's a very empowering experience, because you are the center of attention at that time. And we all know that we're going through and we're always in a very, very busy life. Everything's happening all of the times, and it's very, very easy to just get stuck in life and become very, very autopiloted, where you're not really able to think outside of the box, or you're so emotionally sort of taken aback with whatever's happening, that you're not really able to think clearly. So it's just to give you that mechanism to start taking action again, to not get stuck in the problem. And one of the biggest differences, I would say, and we touched on, people are aware of certain routes, like therapy, for example, like counseling. One of the biggest differences between coaching and counseling is that life coach focuses on creating a new life path, and it's to achieve certain goals, and it's just to have that clarity of moving ahead now. So we are where we are, we've understood where we are, we use the actual problem, the actual pain, to as a board to bounce off of, to go into the next phase of life. So it really helps you to introspect, really helps you to find solutions, really helps you to focus on the now and then what next. Whereas therapy and counseling, for example, will focus very, very much on a specific problem in hand, and they look at the sort of the emotional resolutions of the past problems to move forward from. So finding solutions to those specific problems, while making healing is one of the main thing, right? So it kind of does have some kind of an overlap, but really in my understanding is that coaching is all about, okay, we understand where you are, how do we move forward from here, and how do we actually take action? What is the immediate step I can take? What do my next 3 weeks look like? What do my next 3 months look like? And have really tangible things that you can take, the steps that you can take, you very clear. And I think that's a very, very empowering thing to have on your side, no matter who you are and no matter what level of life you're in. We all can do with this kind of support.
Well, now that I've got you warmed up, as you know, my shows are not that, the norm. I'm going to really come into this from a different angle. And like I said, I'm not here to sell coaching. I don't think I need to. It speaks for itself. And I think you have to experience it and be in it, and even speak to some life coaches to see what it's like. And really, like I said, I'm not here to sell it. So I'm going to ask you, as to Sister Uzma, do you think that it could help with mental well-being? Because a lot of us, are quite critical about the fact that, it does, enter into areas which is people that are not necessarily trained. They're not having years of experience to actually, even if you're thinking about the future, it can be quite detrimental for a person who has sort of, these traumas and needs the deep therapy. And if they go to a coach, could that not be something that is not for them? Because, at the end of the day, we have to give light and weight to those professions out there that actually have got the training, they have got the knowledge for specific mental well-being and mental illnesses and issues that a life coach may not necessarily tap into.
Absolutely. I think it's such an important question, and I'm really glad that you asked it. And if you hadn't, I would have definitely touched on this anyway, because I think it is very, very important to understand the differences, and especially for our community, because we are kind of lagging behind, and coaching in itself is quite a new industry. I mean, we're talking 2 decades worth of work here. And so now it's really coming to the surface, and people are getting to know it. And it actually started from like North America, where it really boomed, and then everybody else is starting to catch on. And we kind of seem to be the last people to think, oh, life coaches, and still people aren't really aware of the differences between the two. So it's really, really important to understand what this is all about. So I think that the premise here, before I go into anything else, is to understand that the therapists and the counselors have their job cut out for them. I mean, they are there to help with real emotional problems. We're talking about addictions. We're talking about substance misabuse. We're talking about people who are actually going through really traumatic experiences, like, things that are that would require maybe even medication as well as talking therapy together, for them to really come out of the trauma that they're experiencing. So it is very, very important to realize that has its own place. And so at no point is life coaching taking away from counseling or therapy in any way, shape, or form? That's always going to stay, and that has its place, and that is something that you can self-refer or get referred by your GP when they realize that actually things are starting to get on top of you. Coaching, I think, it's a step ahead of that. We need to start to understand when things are starting to creep up, when things are starting to feel a bit of an overwhelm, and we all go through stresses of life, but when you feel like, okay, every day is starting to become a bit of a toll, and I'm starting to feel that stress, the heaviness on your shoulders, and just, okay, today has been, and when you put your head down on the pillow and you think, I'd rather not do another day like this, right? When you have a few of those days regularly, you know that there is a point now to try and perhaps seek some help. And it doesn't have to be a very long-term, thing. Maybe you just need a couple of sessions just to unwind and just to untangle and just to have that focus on yourself. But it is really, really important to understand that the counseling has its own place. But I would say that when you are in a space of introspection, when you are in a space where you are focused on resolving your problems, when you are given them tools to start believing in yourself, when you are given specific solutions to the problems that you're facing at that time, when you are given the tools and techniques to move forward, naturally that is going to eliminate a lot of the stress in itself. So emotional issues that aren't actually traumatic issues, that aren't actually things that you need medication for, that aren't actually things that you need long-term therapy for, you'll start to feel that they start to go away themselves, because it's all here, isn't it? It's all about your mind. It's all about the way you think, right? And when you can understand that actually, when I think like this, and you correlate that the way that my reality is becoming very, very much in alignment with how I'm thinking, and when somebody can actually stop you in your tracks and say, hold on, let's track your thoughts, let's think about what you thought and why did that become your reality today, people get that realization very, very quickly themselves. So I think that this is where it differentiates. So we're not claiming to be therapists to say that we're now eliminating emotional issues, but emotional issues come from the issues that we're dealing with on a daily basis. And so when you start with dealing with those, and when you start taking those away, naturally you're going to feel less stressed, less emotionally drained and exhausted, and it's going to help you all around. But I think that having that power of asking empowering questions is such an amazing tool to have, because it makes the person stop in their tracks and think, okay, how do I deal with this? How do I come out of this situation? And really seek the answers from within, because we all know that we're the highest of creation, and this is our ability that makes it. This is one of the abilities that makes us, not only the ability to think, not only the ability to be able to imagine, but also the ability of like using your own willpower to decide whether you're going to take that action or not. And it's that power of decision that puts you in a very high situation where you're able to now make a commitment of moving forward from wherever it is that whatever it is trauma that you're going through at that time. So I think it's definitely
no, that's a really important explanation that you've given there, because I think a lot of people do get confused. The other thing I want to add to that is life coaching on its own may not be seen as therapy, but a lot of life coaches like myself, and I'm sure with Sister Uzma as well, if you go and look into her website, the details will be given, is that, I'm also trained in NLP, which actually helps with, sort of addictions and, trauma and sort of deep sort of therapy as well. And there are other coaches that have other extra sort of like added to their actual courses or training, so that's why they might just refer to themselves as a life coach in itself, but they've got extra training. So you have to do that kind of research as to who you're getting. That's what I meant at the beginning, that life coaching is not just one umbrella like how you would see a psychotherapist, because it's quite clear as to what they do. But with life coaches, they will have their own niche, they will have their own brand, and each one's to their own. They can even have insurance, they can be accredited. You have to find that out for yourself, so that you can actually make sure that you get the best sort of service that you require. So that's what I really want to make clear. When it comes to our mental well-being, Sayed, I find that even when I spoke to a lot of GPs, and they told me, which is really alarming, that if you felt in a particular particular way, like, for example, really low, or not even thinking that life is worth it, worth much. If it's consistent for at least 2 weeks, then that is something that you need to obviously seek some sort of therapy or medication. But I feel that, I use the holistic way, where even if you are going to use medication, you have to go through, the therapy, you have to change your diet, you have to speak, you have to walk, exercise. A lot of these things are not just one way anyways. But when it comes to us as individuals taking care of ourselves, isn't that also a duty in Islam? A lot of us get confused thinking that our duty is just performance of the daily rituals or whatever, but the actual mental state should be given much more highlight to take care of us and to be. So could you maybe, advise us and give us that kind of guidance and examples of how important it is for us to take care of our mental well-being in many, sort of variations, whether it's at the beginning where you're just feeling uncomfortable, whether it's out of counseling, whether, even our coaches are sort of taking over clients that have come out of counseling that need the extra support afterwards as well. So how would you sort of view our mental state and taking care of ourselves as a duty in faith?
Well, again, if we look at the verses of Holy Quran, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you were mentioning just now, the method that He uses to guide us is provoking our thinking. I mean, He makes us think. He gives us examples, and then in the verses of Holy Quran, don't you think this is I mean, makes you think, and that's why there are narrations in Islamic teachings as well, in which it has been said, "May Allah bless the person who knows where he come from, where he is, and where he is going to end up." So again, the process is thought provoking, and by provoking the thought in people, and indirectly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also teaching us as the parents of the future generation, that when you are bringing up your children, don't just dictate them, don't just be a teacher, don't just be an advisor, don't just be a bully. Make them think and let them find the answer. And this is why we don't have taqleed in Aqidah. Aqidah has to be digested by the person, and the digestion of Aqidah cannot be possible without liberty. I mean, by force, you cannot digest it. So dictation, continuously lecturing or advising and just being an advisor is not, although, I mean, there are times that you need an advisor. There are times that you need someone to basically uh, get your hand and pull you out of the mess or lead you somewhere. But those are the times when you need a professional help. But generally, the way a society should be guided, a family should be guided, or youngsters or future generation should be guided, is by provoking their thoughts and making them understand and deciding themselves with the help of elders and others.
Thank you so much for that. That really does coincide a lot with coaching, because I've actually given lots of talks where I've introduced coaching in education, coaching in with kids learning, and it can be taken into your business. It can be taken as even a coaching parent. It really, really is a vast, vast area that people are really not aware of. The other thing I want to come to you quickly before the end of the show, we've still got another like 10 minutes or so, but I've got so many questions. I really want to get into it. And it's really important that we highlight this, is that our coaches looked as professionals, because at the end of the day, they are dealing with people's issues, and they are sometimes not given the long years of training. I mean, I myself have trained for years, but there are many coaches who come out just with a sort of a small short course, and now they are handling people's life issues. And how do you see that? Because at the end of the day, professional is one thing. Yes, you got to come out with a paper, you got to have the credentials and the status. But in my opinion, personally, professional is also how you treat others. Just like how you're professional with somebody else, you have to hold high integrity. If I say I'm going to work for you and I'm going to be there for you, I will be there till the end. My word is my promise. My word is me. And I don't pull out and I don't do things unless it's absolutely necessary. And I think it's not just being professional just with the paperwork, but it's in your actual behavior. And I think that's really important as well. So coaches are not just there, again, as an umbrella. You have to look at the individual because each coach is for themselves. What is your thoughts on this, Sister Uzma?
I think, again, this is a wonderful question, and I think it's definitely very, very important to highlight this as well. Because, yes, there are lots of coaching programs available out there for people to become coaches. And it is important to look through what it is, what kind of process you're going through. I've heard, I've seen people, say things like, just because you've had a midlife crisis doesn't make you a qualified person to be able to help others. And there is a lot of confusion out there, and especially from professionals, people who are already in some kind of a profession fail to understand the importance of life coaches in people's lives. And so it is a very, very important question. Now, I think qualification absolutely is important. I would never ever undermine that, because for you to be in a position that you're now supporting somebody else, you absolutely have to have a background. And I think it's an ongoing thing, cradle to grave, as Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says. At no point, like the Sayyid mentioned earlier, at no point can you sit back and say, well, I've done my bit now and now I can just go out there and do whatever the hell I like. It doesn't work like that. It's gonna be a constant refinement. So that's point number one. At no point, for example, I mean, if we're just talking about therapy, for example, therapists will go through the school and they'll get that qualification and done, and after that I'm sure they're still reviving, they're still going through as things change and stuff like that. They've got to top up what they've done. In the exact same way, coaches and any other profession, lawyers and even doctors and whoever else, have to go through a process of keep going back to make sure that they're still on top of what's happening. We live in a very, very fast-paced world, so it's important to keep on top of that. But I think aside from education, it is very, very important. It is extremely important to have certain qualities under your belt in order for you to perform as a really, really good life coach. And I think that we miss that. And I think that there is an element of having a midlife crisis and having that support you. Because if you have managed to be in a very, very dark place, and if you have managed to come out of that, and you now know steps that you took, you now know what you had to go through in order for you to support others, then I cannot see why that can be wrong if the other people, the people that you are speaking to, are actually benefiting from what you're doing. So there are certain qualities that you have to have as a life coach in order for you to give people something. So if you're in the space of personal growth, that in itself is such an amazing, powerful tool that you can give to people.
Sorry, Uzma, I just have to cut you for a second. We did have a caller. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Assalamu alaikum, Maulana. Sister Uzma and Fahima, I mean, you always come with beautiful topics anyway. You are doing a wonderful job. Now, I've got a couple of suggestions as well. Now, definitely the discussion what is going on is definitely of lot of benefits for the people who are listening to your program. By my suggestion was, I don't know how do you feel? If you get somebody who had a mental problem and who came out of it, if somebody who can volunteer to come and say, because that will be a personal experience, and maybe there will be a lot of things which will probably come out. And I think what Maulana said, and Sister Uzma as well, is she said these things. I think our body is quite capable. Allah created us in such a way that we can solve our own problems. And I think sometimes if you are going through the hardship or people are really abusing you for whatever the reason, and you sometimes feel, okay, look, I think I'm useless. Something like that can push somebody into a situation where he feels completely unwanted.
Sorry, I think we lost the caller. I really do apologize, but I think I did understand to a certain extent. Sorry. Assalamu alaikum. Are you on there again?
Walaikum salam.
Alaikum salam. You're live on
Yes,
Ahlebait TV.
yes,
What would you like to say?
Very good, Fahima. Thank you so much. I must
You're welcome.
appreciate you as well as both your participants, and especially what I heard from Uzma, which is a very good life coach. She did mention, if I got it right, she said, after what is the purpose of life? She said that it is not just that we come here, we live, we eat, we live and go away. After all, what is the purpose of life? I wanted to ask both of Maulana as well as Uzma. God could have very easily sent us directly to the heavens. The moment you were born in labor room, then you could have been sent directly to the heavens. The purpose of life is actually to live with the society, live with others, and do the things that make you a perfect human being. It's not possible to be perfect, but it's close to that as much. And the basic thing that I think the life coach was trying to say, if I heard her right, as I said before, the main thing that we need to impart to the people who come for coaching is to be truthful. The truthful is one thing that if one adopts this habit of being truthful, under trying circumstances, I can assure you that the person will become very strong, and he will have a strong integrity, and he will have least problems. As you might have heard, the one advantage of telling truth is that you don't have ever to remember it. It goes on because that's only there. But if you speak a lie, you have to remember it because you may have spoken something to Uzma and then something else to Maulana. And
Absolutely.
then you have to remember what did you say to him and what did you say to Uzma. So I think the main focus should be that we should be truthful and try to be, humane. This is the basic difference between us and the animals. The human, they consider and they look after their fellow human beings, unlike the animal. That's the only difference. I mean, because we are grown up, we have mind to think, and then we try to. So I was getting carried away by the discussion following that. I think that's a bit confusing. So the main focus.
I will try and answer that question because we've only got a few more minutes before the end of the show. Thank you so much for your call. But inshallah, we will try and put those questions forward to the guest, and hopefully we can at least get a quick answer in a minute or so from Sister Uzma and Syed. So basically, the meaning and purpose of life, and obviously, why would you also need a life coach when you can reflect yourself? But just like how we see in a mirror, we know how we look, but we still look in the mirror. So that's how I always kind of respond in that way. But quickly, Sister Uzma first, what would you like to respond to those callers?
The brother who was just mentioning something about why would we, because we have the abilities within ourselves, and if the coach is only tapping into you for yourself, then surely you should be able to do that yourself, right? I just want to very quickly, I know we're short of time, so I'm going to start rambling very quickly now, and I hope you get the point. So around the teenage years, so when we're younger, we're kind of cool. We don't care about what's going on, how we're dressed, how people see us, and whatever. All of that happens, and then around teenage years is where we start to get really conscious about who we are and what we look like and what we wear and what kind of people we hang around with and what kind of identity we're going to start wearing. And at that point, when that differentiation starts, what happens is we bring on this persona of ourselves that we put out there for the world to see. That's the like the Uzma Naqvi that I want everybody else to see. And then there's an Uzma Naqvi that lives at home, that, you know, hangs around in PJs and knows all her stuff internally deeply, and she's only aware of those things and nobody else knows. And we all have that, right? And it's okay, because you don't want to put everything about yourself on display. It's completely okay to have that differentiation. Where the problem lies is when we live in a fast-paced world like this, and especially with social media today, where we are literally consumed by having this persona and having to put up this persona every single day of our lives continuously. We kind of lose touch with that Uzma that we left behind. And the gap in identity starts to grow and grow and grow. And as we go on in life, and as we accumulate all of these wealth and statuses and, you know, the public figure kind of titles and, you know, getting married and jobs and whatever else we get, everybody else sees that, and we identify with that so much more, because that is something that brings us joy and happiness, be it fake. And then the second bit that, you know, only the bits that I know about, the problems and issues that I'm dealing with, I will try to dampen them and put them away. So when the gap grows so big, it's actually very, very hard to go and find that again, because it's all programmed in the subconscious mind. And getting into your subconscious mind is not an easy matter, because it's something that you're not even aware of. You have to be made aware of it. And somebody who's been through that process of understanding what's actually going on in here, what's been programmed in there, what are my limiting beliefs, why do I behave this way, why have I answered that person this way, why has that person spoken to me, and why have I reacted this way? All of these questions lead you to a path of getting to know yourself. Getting to know yourself is the first step of getting to know your God. Getting to, he invited us in the Quran very clearly, get to know yourself so that you can get to know me. So the ultimate purpose is to reach God, and we are not able to reach God if we haven't even reached our own selves. So you have to start from within and then go out. And I think that has to start with something like some kind of a support, because we do lose touch with ourselves. Sometimes we're not even aware of what's going on internally. We have to have somebody who has the system in place, and also somebody who's been through this, in order for them to say, here, this is what I did, this is what it helped me, and this is what you can try. And at no point do they dictate to say you must do this, but they help you and support you along and give you that hand to say, I'll hold you, let's go through this. And it's a step-by-step process where you do this to support your client out of this.
Thank you so much, Sister Uzma. Thank you so much, Sayed. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show. You know, we're going to have to call you again, unfortunately for you, but we're going to have to call you again to revisit this topic, and even plenty more, because I know you have a lot more behind you in order to give much more awareness. Thank you so much for the callers. Thank you, Sayed. Salamu alaikum. Inshallah, we will be back with another topic and another guest. I hope this has been really helpful and useful. This is really why we have these shows, is for us to have this kind of discussion, open interaction, and we are all, you know, needed in our professions, and, you know, we can collaborate with each other. There is absolutely no harm in finding out and having more information and acting and behaving in the perfect manner, not just with your status and labels, but also behind the scenes, which is most importantly as to how we